What's up, guys? It's your boy Ray coming at you live from still my new place, just out in the courtyard, recording a video for you. Hope you're having a good Saturday afternoon, having a good weekend, depending on when you listen to this. I wanted to talk about Peyton Watson just because it's the only thing we really have to talk about right now, and restricted free agency. I feel like if I can get you to take nothing away from this video, I would like to say that restricted free agency is one of the most unethical things I have seen in sports, honestly, just in like the labor market in general, particularly in the context of having the second apron function like a soft hard cap in the incentive structure that creates. Restricted free agency feels so broken that personally, I don't blame Peyton for not just going along with whatever the organization wants for him. And I don't think we as fans, I get that this is becoming increasingly ugly and may continue to do so. But at the same time, this is his life. This is the culmination for a lot of these athletes. It's the culmination of a lifetime of sacrifice, and I think that that's got to be worth something for them. And so, however you want to go about getting value for your labor, I think that's justifiable. Like that's your job. That's your if somebody told me that, hey, I don't get to decide what state, what city I work in, and then I don't get to decide if I actually get the opportunity to do my job or not, and then after a while, if I want to change jobs, well, that other job gets to decide if that actually happens or not anyway, I would be upset. Like that would bother me too. I think that's a very reasonable when you really put it in the context of labor, it's a reasonable thing to want to one, have your talents be respected and valued, and two, have the freedom to choose the job, choose where you work. Now, in my last video, I said $20 million dollars a year, roughly. I still think that's the right number. I think it's maybe a little bit less than he wants, but at the same time is probably a little bit more than the team wants to pay him. And that is a fair, I think, it's the thing called compromise, right? And I think it makes some sense for both sides as well to keep it at a reasonable length of time for Peyton because I'm sure he wants to get back to the free agency market while he's still in his prime. And for the Nuggets, because you don't want to be tied down to some type of 5-year contract like some other guys who, unless that is a key piece for you, an undeniable pillar of your organization, of your team, and you're sure about that, and you're sure about the trajectory of that player, less seems like more right now. I think somewhere around the 3-year mark, maybe 2 years in a player option. I think that could be, you're giving him that opportunity to get back to the market, as I said, but also you're giving him some security. And at the same time, consider this. Say he did accept that whatever $14 million, $17 million, some sort of like closer to mid-level exception type of deal in the teens. Denver is, if he accepts 14, I think that puts Denver around $20-ish million over the luxury tax, over the second apron anyway. And so regardless of whether it's 14 or 17 or 20, you've got to make some moves. You've got to offload some salary if you really want to actually save. I get that every $1 million over is X $1 million in the second apron's luxury tax bill, but let's be real, they're not looking to pay that bill. At the end of the day, someone is going to go. I think it's Aaron, but it could also be Cam, it could also be Peyton, and that isn't changing whether for the Nuggets, whether he makes 14 or $20 million. That's not the difference between what one of those decisions is going to have to be. And if anything, all of this is a delay tactic for what is eventually coming, is just because the guys Denver is paying truly a lot of money to, $30 million, $50 million, those guys are aging. So it's really just a delay tactic to get to a point where eventually we're going to have to make some decisions there. All that is to say, Peyton is just doing his best in the situation he's in, and let's be real, it just wasn't a favorable. It's not a favorable situation for him, even for his, even for Clutch. If you think they're the worst, if you think they're evil, Clutch is like the evil empire of sports. I I understand how you might think that, but that's not true. Like, there's a lot more scumbaggery going on. It just happens to be behind closed doors, and happens to be, you're just not gonna hear about it. Clutch just happens to be the most transparent, fully transparent, but translucent maybe, and out there and vocal and just regular, and it's tied to LeBron. Let's be honest. That's all the attention that's going to come is anytime you're attached to LeBron. That's a part of the deal. But the way restricted free agency functions is that unless you are a max player, in which case teams will treat you like you are one of those players who you'll wait 3 days in a free agency to just hear back on, or you're so small and inconsequential that teams are willing to have, look at Spencer's case, $6 million sequestered away for a few days, and that's okay because it's only $6 million. And for all those guys in the middle, there really isn't a mechanism for your $20-25 million a year player to be that priority when all of that money gets locked up for the waiting period for them to match or not. And so what it does is puts the player in a position where it's about what deal you can go out and get from other teams, but it also pulls you out of the opportunity where you can actually get you can get those offers. You're just not going to get them. And so it almost puts you in the back of the line for free agency. You can't, and how do you blame the agency, his representation for that? Or how do you blame him for that? Personally, I don't think, it's just not. And so it ties back into what I said earlier. Restricted free agency, especially in the NBA, in the second apron era, is just one of the least ethical things about the game right now. So before you break out the picket fence, the pickets and the pitchforks for Peyton and Clutch, consider the fact that for years he played for a coach who didn't really like him. Maybe he didn't hate him as a person, but certainly not as a player. And that once he got an opportunity, he did everything in his power all right. maybe a storm is about to happen. So I gotta, I guess, end this video. But everybody here is doing their best. I'm doing my best. Peyton is doing his best with what he has uh, to get something out of the sacrifice he's made for his entire life. Uh, and that's all I really got to say right now. I'm gonna let this end, but I hope y'all have a great day. I hope I don't get caught in some type of crazy storm in the next 30 seconds. And yeah, I'll see y'all later.